I can, yes.
Want me to mute myself?
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone on YouTube and joining us live in the conference. We're just going to chill for a few minutes, let other people come in, get settled, and start here shortly. Hello, everybody coming in. Make sure you grab some water, some vegetables, or whatever you like to snack on. We're going to start in a few minutes here. Just waiting for more people to get settled in. Can't wait for tonight. It's going to be exciting. Cool. All right. I think it's about time to start. What do you guys think? Yeah? Yeah, I think so too. Well, I'll introduce myself. My name is Dominic Salis. I am a youth activist with the Whatcom Focused Youth Movement, and I am also one of the on the planning committee for the conference tonight. And I'm welcoming you. So, hello. Welcome to the 23rd Annual Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Human Rights Conference. Our theme this year is recapturing the revolutionary spirit, dangerous unselfishness, taken from Dr. King's I've Been to the Mountaintop. We are here to collectively create a space to listen and talk about what is happening in our country right now. In the United States, we don't often check in with one another because we are conditioned to think individually. Today, we start challenging that notion because it is when we are dangerously unselfish, we are able to live with love in our hearts and unity on our sleeve. As Dr. King shares the story of the Good Samaritan in that same speech, he brings forth the question that we must also ask ourselves. If we do not stop to help, what will happen to them? It is time to break down the American myth of individualism and replace it with a fierce recapturing of the revolutionary spirit so that we may forge ahead collectively and grow, give, receive, and love as a beloved community. As Dr. King says, we are tied together in the single garment of destiny, caught in the inescapable network of mutuality. Over the next 24 hours, an expansive amount of knowledge, skills, and passion will be shared. Things are a little different this year, and we are excited for the opportunities we have found in the silver lining of going virtual. You can find registration for workshops at www.whrtf.org. Following tonight's opening ceremony and keynote, we will have a brief open house at 8:45 a.m. tomorrow for extra support with the 16 workshops from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m., followed by a closing ceremony at 4 o'clock. Throughout the day, there will be moments of learning, frustration, connection, discomfort, and joy. We ask that you learn and savor every moment while also taking in the time to care for yourselves. Take breaks. Drink water. I have vegetables right here. I love me some green peppers. So, may the community that gathers here over the weekend be a reservoir in which you may refill your cup. As Dr. Angela Davis writes in Freedom is a Constant Struggle, it is in collectives that we find reservoirs of hope and optimism. Now, please welcome Yupik activist from the Whatcom Focused Youth Movement, Harmony Devaney, for our land acknowledgement.
This is not a land acknowledgement. Acknowledgement is a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. No, acknowledgement is a doctor seeing your wound and simply stating, you're bleeding, just watching you suffer, but he acknowledged it, right? Acknowledgement is thoughts and prayers. I don't want Band-Aids. I want surgery. I want life. I want action. This is not a land acknowledgement. It is not enough to acknowledge the atrocities Indigenous people have faced and continue to face. Let's take it way back. October 12th, 1492, Christopher Columbus steps his nasty feet on what is now the Bahamas. As a result of his greed, 12 to 15 million Indigenous people died, 50,000 from suicide alone, and this bitch still has a holiday. This is not a land acknowledgement. Who does acknowledgement really benefit? 1782, the European diseases had contact with the Coast Salish people before the Europeans themselves. In the first epidemic of smallpox, 2/3 of the Coast Salish people died. This is not a land acknowledgement. 1862, President Lincoln publicly hung 38 Dakota men. 1863, U.S. Army kills 250 or more Shoshone people. 1880, an estimated 300 Sioux men killed for participating in the ghost dance. Wounded Knee Massacre of 1890, 150 Lakota people dead. And the list goes on and on and on. This is not a land acknowledgement. Kill the Indian, save the man. From 1870 to 1973, Indigenous children were stolen and sent to boarding schools where they were re-educated, which really means beaten, assaulted, and abused for being Indigenous. This is not a land acknowledgement. Present-day America. Indigenous women are 2.5 times more likely to be sexually assaulted than any other ethnicity. 56% of Indigenous women have been assaulted. That means that I and my sisters are more likely to be sexually assaulted than could graduate. This is not a land acknowledgement. I am not asking you to stop acknowledging the land you occupy. I am asking you to not stop your allyship there. Acknowledgement doesn't find my missing sisters, doesn't give clean running water to the Navajo Nation, doesn't stop pipelines and mines and reservations. In case it isn't abundantly clear, I don't want your acknowledgement. I want your money. That means buying from Native-owned businesses, donating to organizations that are helping Indigenous people, like Women Empowering Women for Indigenous Nations or the Native American Rights Fund. I don't want your acknowledgement. I want your time. Take the time to read books like Bury My Heart, A Wounded Knee by Dee Brown or Empire of the Summer Moon by S.C. Gwynn. Acknowledgement is only the first step at being an ally to the Indigenous people. Just don't make it your last step. Do not fall into the cycle of complacency. This is not a land acknowledgement. It's a call to action. Thank you.
Thank you, Harmony. I'm just going to take a moment to let that sink in for a minute. Very powerful. Please join us in welcoming Lummi Elder William John.
Can you see me? Can you see me?
We can't see you, but I can hear you. Oh,
What's going on here?
oh, hold on.
There's a stop video and start video option.
Yay.
Usually at the bottom.
My name is William Lloyd John. My given name. My traditional name is Huletsa. Chuletsa Tanukutanukhlami. First Nations people. This is my place of origin. I don't come from any other place on this earth. The very air that we breathe is the air of my ancestors. I'm not here to wax strong tonight. I'm not here to scold anybody. That's not my way. I've been an angry man, but I'm 73 years old. I'm going to speak in my language and then I'm going to offer a welcome song. Chayels Hoishka Kwache Atsa Chachat Huyalkan Nestli Tlakwa Angst Nasu Ekan Square Atiasna Aishka Atsa Tsitam Aishka Atsa Chanuch Haishka Atsa Tatasanuch Haishka Atsa Estalnuch Si Am Equa Angst Ait Schwellewen Atias Nat Nequaliam Haishka Atsa Nestjalangen Atsa Snapanuk Atsa Martin Luther King Conference. I'm going to speak English. Our dear Creator, thank you for the sacred return. From the sacred, we return to the sacred. I'd like to give you my true words. Thanking the Creator for the tzeitzim, the birds. Thanking the Creator for the fish, that's chan nuch. Thanking the Creator for the tatasal nuch, the four-legged animals. Aishka atza estal nuch si am. Thank you for all the people of the earth that come in all colors. And my dear wish that that tonight, that we can be of one mind, one purpose, with passion, with angst, with sorrow, with pain, and also with the ability to how we conduct ourselves tonight, with recognition to he, she, it, the pronouns that people want to be identified from. I'm an old man. I'm a Native man. I'm a First Nations man. And thank you, our Creator, for my ancestors and my elders. And thank you for the Snipanuk. Thank you for the teachings tonight and always. The kawatung, the drum, the kawatung, the rhythm is as ancient as mother's heartbeat. The chachach, the sacred return, the eternal conception, the beginning, and as we all come through mother's womb, our first cry, our first breath, and the journey begins. From the fetal position, we return, elderly, all worn out, back to the fetal position. When we expire and we return to the sacred. Please, I hope that we all have Ait Schwelleman, can be of one mind and seek comfort from within and without, compassion for all. Haishka si amsi atlam kwache. Thanking each and every one of you. Haishka.
Haishka, Kwakalitsa. For opening remarks, I ask you to help me welcome President of Whatcom Community College, Dr. Kathy Hiani Brown.
Thank you very much. I am indeed honored to be able to share a few words of greeting with you this evening and to be part of the events that lie before us in the next couple of days. I have to say I'm very humbled because I have always, since my days as a youngster, admired the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, a great leader, a giant of a man whose words and work inspired me and should always be remembered by all of us. His global vision of justice helped to awaken the social conscience of this great nation to its moral obligations. His work continues to inspire people, and I hope more than just myself, but I know for all of you, to create a world where all people are treated equal. But as recent events have demonstrated, there are many challenges before us. The contentious political climate of the last several months and the recent attacks of violence on our nation and state capitals are disturbing and have underscored the deep divisions within our country. The unprecedented challenges presented by global and racial pandemics highlighted inequities for Blacks, Indigenous, and people of color in our country. And as we celebrate Dr. King's life and work, I hope that I can encourage all of you to reflect on the collective actions we need to take to heal and reunite our country. Dr. King inspired me with his dreams and vision for this country. And it begins with individual actions of all of us, of me, to embrace the diversity of our communities. I encourage all of you to join in with me to explore our own individual capacities as an individual and an agent of change. As Dr. King shared, the time is always right to do what is right. As president of Whatcom Community College and a passionate advocate for education for my entire life, it will be no surprise to you when I say that we should support the work of our educational institutions and support our students. I firmly believe in the role that higher education plays to support our democracy and prepare community-minded citizens and future leaders to serve the common good. Education transforms lives. I see it on a daily basis by bringing communities together to engage respectfully across ideological differences. Whatcom Community College is a place where diverse learners can find community and belonging, while refining their skills and strengths to achieve their academic goals and to make our community stronger. And as an educator, I try to encourage the sharing and discovery of knowledge, support discourse of divergent viewpoints and perspectives, and cultivate the capacity of our students to think critically. I, along with other educators, must always encourage our students, and we ourselves seek to understand, weigh, and assess the ideas, assertions, and arguments that come from traditions, from disciplines, beliefs, and perspectives. And as I close my remarks this evening, I remain hopeful for our future, even as there is angst, hatred, and violence around us, because I remember the words and am inspired by the work of Dr. King and other great leaders who led with their hearts and courage during tumultuous times. Our nation is strong and can overcome the divisive hate and destructive partisanship. There is difficult work ahead for all of us, and it will take all of us working together to heal our nation. The gravest challenges before us can often lead to transformative success. So thank you so much to the organizers, the supporters of this celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King. I am proud, and the college is proud, to work alongside all of you in this community to support all of our work. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kiani Brown, for your words. You may recognize this next performer from his days on the stage with local funk band Baby Cakes, or with his trio around town. So please join me in welcoming Miles Harris for a musical presentation.
Hello, my name is Miles Harris, and it is an honor and a pleasure to be included in this conference. I have selected a nice little handful of songs for y'all that I thought were appropriate, and I hope they reach you wherever you are, and thank you for being here. So, Kick It Right is a song I wrote maybe like half a year ago, but I wanted a song that was a call to unity, and it was an anthem, and it was inviting people to move forward and move forward with joy together. And I hope it reaches you. Kick it right. Stop, relax, unwind. This ain't no place for wasting time. Forget what's on your mind, and together we can walk the line. But the bubble people next to me can't agree on anything except that yours is right. Oh no, no, there's no way life's supposed to be the death of me, 'cause I know there's still another side. And now tonight we're right, and let your spirit ride. Wanna kick it right down to take it farther than ever to know we can wait it out. What all your mothers, brothers, sisters in this world wanna kick it right? Don't look deep in the heart and it's surely deep hurts. And you know it's out of sight when we kick it right. Lost our place in time, but then the rhythm start to play. I feel the life joined together in unification, like a weapon dance, a celebration. There could be a world, no frustration, escalation. No, I could give anything and everything, but we'll never know it unless we try. Oh, we try. Hoping that you and me can both agree that it's time to feel the other side of this life. And on tonight we're right, and let your spirit fly. Wanna kick it right down to take your mind to the limit to know we can wait it out. But all your mothers, brothers, sisters in this world wanna kick it right. Oh, no, deep in the heart, really deep heart. You know that it's say when we kick it right. This may sound like a crazy dream, but this fantasy is closer than it seems. Hit the words of wisdom and let it be. Doesn't matter where you come from, but what you about to get done. Seek the truth that lies beyond your eyes, and feel the love that's growing deep inside. Check your ego at the door, you won't need them no more. And you know that it's time really kick it right.
Now, Bad News on My Mind is a song that I wrote around the beginning of the pandemic, and I'm sure everyone can remembers what that felt like those first month or two. And there was a day after being stressed out all day every day that I just woke up, and it's like I had forgotten all the bad things, and all I could think about were things that made me happy, and how much I loved the people around me. And it sort of made me put things back into perspective and remember that balance is really important. So I kind of want to make a song about that, but also, again, a song that is about unity and moving forward, because I do believe the things we can do together is just astounding. And so I hope you enjoy the song.
Woke up to the morning, what did I find? My woes of yesterday, warming on my mind. 'Cause I just couldn't stand it, my heart's too weak. I just need some peace and love for my soul to keep. There's always gonna be hard times, always gonna be some twisted lines. That's why together we must stand. 'Cause we've got the vote to lose, the love we just begun to find. And I ain't got bad news on my mind. No, I ain't got bad news on my mind. No, I ain't got bad news on my mind. I ain't got bad news on my mind. Take things one day at a time. No, I ain't got bad news on my mind. Oh, no, I don't. There's always gonna be hard times, always gonna be some twisted lines. That's why together we must stand. We got the vow to lose, the love we just begun to find. And I ain't got bad news on my mind. No, I ain't got bad news on my mind. No, I ain't got bad news on my mind. No, I ain't got bad news on my mind. No, I ain't got bad news on my mind. On my mind. I ain't got bad news on my mind. No, I ain't got bad news. On my mind.
River of Happiness is a pretty old Dolly Parton song that I really enjoy, and I wanted to sing it for you guys today because of a few reasons. A, it always makes me smile. Every time I hear it, I hope it makes you smile. I can't hear it and be upset. And beyond that, it always reminds me that, somewhere, whether it be somewhere literally on the earth or, somewhere later in time, there's going to be a really beautiful moment waiting for you. And I know it's important for me to remember that. I just thought I'd bring that to you guys. I hope you enjoy it. Dolly Parton's River of Happiness. Somewhere a river of happiness flows, sit on its banks while the warm breezes blow. Somewhere there's a garden where only love grows. Somewhere a river of happiness flows. Dry your eyes, don't cry no more. We'll find a place where there's laughter and joy. Take my hand and don't let go. Come with me and together we'll go. Yeah, somewhere a river of happiness flows. Sit on its banks while the warm breezes blow. Somewhere there's a garden where only love grows. Somewhere a river of happiness flows. We'll walk in the sunshine, we'll laugh and we'll sing and dance to the tune that our happiness brings. Come now with me to this place I speak of. Together we'll find it, this place is called love. Somewhere a river of happiness flows. Sit on its banks while the warm breezes blow. Somewhere there's a garden where only love grows. Somewhere a river of happiness flows. Somewhere a river of happiness flows.
That was incredible. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Miles Harris. And now it is my deepest pleasure to present the next portion of our evening, the keynote. But first, please welcome Su-Ling Zhao, a prominent local activist, artist, and thespian in our local community.
Thank you so much, Dominic. And thank you everyone who's chosen to spend their evening with us tonight. My name is Su-Ling Zhao. I have the honor of getting to host our keynote and facilitate a conversation between three amazing human beings. Tonight, for Reservoirs of Hope, Artists of Revolution, we get to hold space with three people who I am so excited to see come together. On a deeply personal level, these three people hold a special place in my heart because of the impact of their work, their passion, their authenticity, and also because they're just incredible human beings. And I am filled with gratitude that I get to be a person in conversation with them and hold that space with all of you tonight. I'd love to introduce our three panelists. The first person I would love to introduce is Ebony. Ebony is a singer, songwriter, dancer, community organizer, and she's one of the founding members of Stand, Speak, Listen, which was birthed out of the George Floyd Rebellion. Stand, Speak, Listen promotes social justice through the lens of art. And SSL organizes small events, dance classes, chalking events. Ebony was out at Glass Beach doing cleanups this summer, as well as removing white supremacist graffiti from downtown. On the 4th of July, Ebony arranged Rhythmic Unrest, which was a giant protest where artists and performers and speakers and attendees occupied Acid Ball Memorial Park, as we like to call it, in a day of protest. So welcome, Ebony. I would also love to welcome Jay Chavez. Jay is a playwright and local drag queen known as Tsunami Meadows. They've received their degree of theater from Western Washington University, and they're the current reigning Miss Kennedy Center undergraduate playwright for their play, How to Clean Your Room and Remember All Your Trauma, which was produced even during COVID. So Yas Queen, indeed. Their work is included in the, oh my gosh, Methuen? Is that right, Jay?
Methuen? I never learned how to
Methuen.
say it.
There we go, great. The Methuen Drama Book of Trans Plays, which is coming in May 2021, and is the founder and artistic director of House of Hazard Theater Productions, which produces new works and Shakespeare each year. And finally, I would love to welcome Ed Burrell, who is an American artist and is best known for assemblage works, as well as for his participation in exhibitions and performances, and for having some notable exhibitions get shut down, if we're all honest, Ed, as well as using art as a way of addressing political issues and stereotypes from the 1960s onward. Ed was a founding member of the 1960s radical street theater group Bodacious Boogarilla, and most recently, Ed was featured in Waka Museum's retrospective, Wanted Ed Burrell for disturbing the peace, because you sure as hell did. So welcome, my wonderful, beautiful Keynote humans. Feel free to unmute yourselves. I would love for this to be an opportunity for us to, in our Zoom rooms, hang out in a living room with each other as we talk about different things. And I feel like the first thing we should talk about is to go back to, our roots as artists and kind of give our guests tonight an opportunity to get to know you better as well. So I would love to ask, what your first memory of using art as a tool for social justice was. And I think I'm going to kick it to Jay first.
Can you repeat the question? My mind was elsewhere. I'm so sorry.
What was your first memory of using art for social change?
Oh, wow. I was, my first time. Oh, wow. I did a performance when I was in drag. I was down at Rumors. This probably is my first one. Was probably one of the bigger ones. I did a piece, a performance about ICE deportation and detention centers, where I was dressed up. I had my flannel on. I had my hair up. I was doing very, Mexican American pride, like Chicano, yes. And then it went into this big radio piece and thing, interview about collateral deportation, where if the ICE agents are after one specific person, if there's anyone else who's undocumented in that area or around them, they can also be deported as well. So I did this in front of a crowd of people, because before that I was doing Juice by Lizzo and Bubblegum Bitch by Marina. So everyone's yeah, they're hyping up. And then I hit them with that, and they were confronted with this reality, because a lot of people go to drag shows and they're I'm just gonna hand them money and leave. They just want, they think it's escapism, when I'm this isn't. You're going to be confronted with the things that you're doing, and the reality you're living in. So that's probably one of the biggest ones. Probably not the first, because I can't remember the first, I'm going to be honest. But yeah.
Ebony, I have the same question for you. What's your first memory of using your art as a tool for social justice?
I think that this, my recent experience with my organization has been the first for me, using my art in a productive capacity Usually it's definitely a personal thing and something that I keep to myself. But I think that recently, this past year, I've been doing a lot of reflecting on how we act and how I see people act around me and why we act the way we do. And specifically when looking at protests, I feel like I noticed a lot of, in my perception, I noticed people straight copying what they saw on TV, which I didn't think was a realistic reflection of what was happening in the first place. And I felt like people wanted to do something, but they weren't sure what to do. And I feel like I'm not necessarily only good at one thing, but the one thing I love the most is to create. And if I'm gonna help people around me, I think that that's definitely the best way to do it. It's where my passion lies. So yeah, it's a new experience for me, which makes me kind of nervous to be here, but also excited because I look at you two, Jay and Ed, and I kind of stalked your work a bit the past couple of weeks, and I'm amazed and I'm humbled to be here. And I also I recognize that I feel like you've both been where I am right now in some capacity. Like I'm just opening up to this world as an independent human and trying to figure it out. And I'm excited to explore the parallels and learn from both of you.
I feel like I want to pivot on my original question for you then, Ed. Do you remember that first moment of realizing your capacity as an artist for social change and what that moment was like, your first venture out the gate with it?
Let me answer your question this way. I came from a small town and came to Los Angeles and went to art school and was absolutely enthralled by all the information and all the alternative thinking that was happening in a metropolitan area as opposed to a country town. And that was reflected in the artists who were teaching at the art school I went to. So I really got caught up into a world very, very different than I was born in and that I was raised in. And for a lot of reasons, I was accepted in and brought aboard and got a lot of perks for being an artist, not necessarily a Black artist, but an artist who, for some reason or another, seemed to know what he was doing. I was kind of celebrating that by a lot of drinking, a lot of carousing, and a lot of making art. And one night I walked into the Watts insurrection, and guns and violence, people getting killed, smoke, looting, and it looked like Los Angeles was going to get burned to the ground. I mean, literally. And at one point, I walked into a 50 caliber machine gun held by or sitting behind it was a National Guardsman who could have blown me away and no one would have said anything. And at that point, I realized that I had invested a lot of energy in the wrong place. And it was time either to leave the art world, which I did for a while, and or find another way to take whatever skills I had to start talking about the alternative. I found myself caught in a very strange world that I had to leave and get back to my roots, get back to some of the things that I had been raised with, the culture I'd been raised with, and be able to start to talk about the incredible gulf between what everybody did every day according to the television or the LA Times and so forth, versus what I knew was really going on, and really what the Watts insurrection was all about. So it became time to, as I said, take whatever I was able to do and put it to talking about something as opposed to talking about nothing. What happened was I found myself in theater, guerrilla theater, which seemed at the time the best way to talk about the everyday lives of everyday people, and particularly Black and brown people, as they lived it on a daily basis. Because I had been making art for the enjoyment of wealthy people. And that was, I found out that to talk about socially, politically relevant subject matter was not enjoyed. And wealthy people do not buy art that talks about that. So it wasn't a particular decision really on my part. It was social conditions said, either I'm going to really be who I really am, or I will be a wealthy, well-known asshole, which I would prefer not to do.
We're glad you chose the alternative, Ed. Something that we were talking about in this planning process was having this conversation between multiple generations and multiple different intersections of the BIPOC community of artists, and talking about, I guess you were starting to touch on it, Ed, being authentically yourself versus creating for audiences. And right now we're living in Whatcom County, which is an 86% white community. And we're making art here and sharing our art with others. How do you, at this point, how do you balance authenticity in these spaces that we're occupying? What do you think, Ed, Ebony? Anyone can jump in. I would just throwing that into the cosmos.
Well, I'll take it. Jay, go ahead. I'll wait.
So just to clarify, the question is like, how do we still be authentic with our art surrounded by a bunch of white people?
Basically, yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's a good summary.
Cool. Is my laugh too loud? Too bad. No, for me at least, I think I got to the point where I just like looked myself in the mirror, that I illegally screwed into my wall, but who's gonna stop me? I looked at myself and I said, yeah, no, I'm not gonna write my plays for white people or cis people, because I don't want that. Like, I don't want that. I put this at the beginning of all my plays. I say these roles are not meant, these roles are not meant to be cast by a term that I call Weiss to Strabel. which stands for white, cis, straight, and able, which is I don't know. It just rolls off the tongue nicely. And I don't write roles for Weiss's Strables because I get tired of seeing them on the stage. And so I just started writing for myself, and then that kind of in turn started writing for other marginalized people. And I really, honestly, I just said, fuck it. Am I allowed to swear here?
I mean, I feel like we've gone down that rabbit hole already.
Okay.
Let it go, Queen.
I just said, fuck it. And I don't care that much because I don't want to appease the person oppressing me when I can appease the people around me. So that's pretty much just what happened. And that in turn became my authentic self. And I started, I don't know, creating work that I liked. And yeah, that's pretty much, that's what happened with me.
And Ed, you were going to jump in.
The question, my immediate answer to your question is, I've kind of been around white people all my life. And I really didn't have a choice in the matter. It was when I was younger, because I'm probably older than everybody else here, I was in a segregated situation where, you know, I didn't see a lot of white people without going downtown. And and actually that was kind of cool because I think I was able to discover a little bit about myself as opposed to having to deal with some kind of an adversary all the time. When in middle school, I began to meet white people. And what happens, I guess, I can only talk about me, you can't help but study them. And the fact that they operate in a very odd way. And the other thing, well, one of the things that you discover is if you're a Black male, you find yourself being something that scares them. And a lot of social and political relationships that you didn't set up, but are already set up, that you walk into and have to choose, like, how am I going to deal with this? How am I going to deal with that? What's this mean, really? What does that mean, really? And at one point, I think I felt superior to white people. And I've never said that before, and I've never really acknowledged that out loud, but I think that was true. I was an odd person, an oddball in all in all communities. Okay, in the Black community, I loved the Black community, my people, my neighborhood, the hood, the guys, all of that. But I think who was the woman? Jane Goodall, who worked with the chimpanzees. And I hate this kind of reference because we're always called monkeys. But they found that without the odd monkey, the group would eventually disappear. It couldn't hold itself together. It needed the odd monkey to go, hey, everybody jump up. It sounds weird in the bushes there. We got to run. Or some kind of and I'm searching for the word, some kind of an odd a yin as opposed to everybody's yang had to be there to make the group survive. Well, I didn't know it, but I probably was that in Riverside in many ways, because the conversations would always go in one particular direction, and I would go because I really didn't understand what people were talking about. I would always go, well, what happens if you paint it red and stick it up your nose? And they would go, what? Wow, you're odd. You're very odd. I think what happens is, and I'll try to pull all this together. uh, I think I can remember, and I know really right now, I heard people talking, and I heard their speech and their conversations, but I didn't know what they were talking about, really talking about. And I think very much right now, I am now old enough to go, people do a lot of talking, but they don't cop to what they're really talking about. They're speaking, but their real conversation, and I guess that has a lot to do with their agenda, is not being spoken. They're coming from there, but they're not talking about that. They're talking about the car and the insurance and how much they got to pay for the lawyer. And I've got to split up with my wife because she's really kind of driving me crazy. But I like the cute girl in the next neighborhood. It's not about that, and it's not about racism. It's not about sexism. It's not about the other, the immigrants and so forth. It's about something underneath that. That's the veneer. That's the conversation, and that's the accepted conversation. The real conversation is, and I'll jump to the punchline. The real conversation is, what is it you're really scared of? I'm conscious of being the marionette that racists use to cover what they're really scared of. Did I get you?
You got me. You brought it back around, Ed.
And it was a big circle, and I didn't know that I would make it. But
it was worth it. That's beautiful. I
Thank
hadn't
you.
really thought about that.
Well, I in when I was younger, in my teens, when there's girls, there's guys, and there's genes, and there's all kind of pumping in your body, and I'm going, what are they saying? I would go to a dance, guys would be dancing with the greatest girls that I wanted to dance with, and they're talking to them in their ear, and I put myself in their position, and I wouldn't know what to say. Do you understand what I mean? They're having these conversations that I understand the words. I speak English. I understand when people are mad at each other, and I understand that. But what happened with me for some reason is that's not what they're really saying. That's not what they're really talking about. And right now we've got a president who is saying some shit, but that ain't what he's talking about.
I feel like I want to talk about something really specific with you, Ebony. Like, you're the other femme presenting person of color on this conversation right now, and we hit a different intersection than the other folks on this call. And Ed, you just shared some really incredible things as a Black man navigating those spaces. In your skin, How does it feel navigating these spaces?
I definitely relate to a lot of what both of you said. I feel like most of my life has been spent in predominantly white spaces. And for some reason, people usually like what I create. And so that has offered some special privileges at times. And it's really confusing to navigate. It's interesting to hear both of you talk because I feel like I'm listening to where I am at right now. I feel like I've explored a lot of different versions of the Black identity. I've been an attractive Black woman walking down the street with straightened hair, and that gets a certain response. Typically, people are nicer to me if I have wider characteristics like straightened hair and white advertised brands, but they're also somewhat demanding. Like, come here, let me talk to you. It's not really a question, right? They're telling me that I owe them my time. Yeah. And then I find if my hair is really big and curly, it's still a demand, but the language is different. There's Black slang all of the sudden, and slightly more degrading terms. And then I've had experiences where I present in a way where people can't tell what my gender expression is. And I've seen people cross the street because I'm presenting as a man, at least most definitely in the perception around me. And I've had people, comment on my body seeing the backside and then maybe second guess it seeing the front side. And I feel like no matter what Black identity I've explored, I never truly have respect in the space that I'm in, or I never truly feel like I deserve to be in the space that I'm in, even if I helped create it, even if I opened the door. And I think that, it's incredible because the time I felt the absolute most respected as an individual walking through life was on Halloween, about a year ago, I don't know, before 2020, when we were able to go out. I went in Snoop drag and just fully took on the persona that night, to the point where people were passing right by me that I've known for years, and they didn't look twice, they didn't recognize me. And everyone just thought I was a man and accepted me as a man and moved out of my way for the first time in my life. I would be walking down the street and people would move out of my way. And I couldn't believe that people avoiding space felt like more respect to me, because what I'm really looking for is for people to share the space, right? Not demand that I'm either inside of it or outside of it or remove themselves from the situation. I just want to be present. And I think that I've kind of lost the question.
I think that you're sharing something that's really beautiful about the specific intersections that you get to that you sit in as a human being and in our bodies and in our skin, and honestly, to a certain extent, the way that, you know, based on gender presentation, people get treated differently, and amongst the BIPOC community, that's the same. But there is a difference between how we're treated when we have a masculine identity and the fetishization of those bodies and the exoticism that's there, versus the space that we hold when we are female presenting, or if we are gender neutral. Those things change, and it changes how we're objectified and in what way, and maybe speaks to what Ed was talking about of like, what are you afraid of? And in gender presentation and in at the intersection of being a person of color, the fear changes. I know we have a gender artist right now in this call, and Jay, something that I always have thoroughly enjoyed about your art in particular is that you play with gender and you confront gender in a really meaningful way as a drag queen that plays with, you know, that can really rock a pair of pants, TBH. And so, I mean, I would love to talk to you, like bring you into this conversation as a non-binary individual, as an artist in drag and a drag performer, to talk about like that intersection for you. And maybe if we're getting to these roots of these fears that maybe we see out in our world that we navigate, like what that experience is for you and what that might be.
Yeah. Yeah. So first off, I wrote this down. Ebony, you mentioned earlier, somewhere time this, I don't know, for time is an illusion. You said you were like, you looked at our work and you were like, I'm, still starting out. And I felt the same way, but about you two. And so I still think I'm like really like getting, started. I don't do as much as compared to you two. Like you two, I'm like, wow. And so like, it was really interesting hearing that. And I just like earlier, I was using the bathroom and I said to myself, I was like, when do you know that you've made it? And I think I was like, there's making it is such like a social construct. Cause I feel like it's like a living in the present kind of thing. I don't know. I just wanted to mention this earlier, but like, especially when it comes to like learning and like being like an artistic revolution justice person, like there's never like a making it. I don't know. I just wanted to talk about that or mention that. But yes, Stu, that question. Yes, I look great in pants. What was the actual question?
I was just talking about gender intersecting with being a person of color, but like we can also unpack.
No, I want to talk about that. I had a lot of coffee earlier today, so let's go. Yeah, no, because it's really interesting because especially with like non-binariness, it's kind of been, I don't want to say co-opted but like there's this idea that to be non-binary and there's a way to present as androgyny that is thin and white and like either long hair or shaved hair. Yes, I shaved my head, but that wasn't because of gender. That was because of a breakdown. Those are two different things. I want to clarify that to all of you. And so it's really interesting not being like a thin white person who wears crop tops and netting and like in what are those called? What are those fucking called? Fishnets, or like fishnets, or like mesh tops. I don't know. I see a lot of like that's kind of like become the idea of it. And so it's like really interesting not being that because I'm just kind of like, I don't know, I look like this. Like there's not a lot going on here. All personality. And so it's don't laugh at that one. Or do. I don't know.
It was funny.
And so, it's interesting. Like I have to. Like I'm not pretty. I'm gorgeous. That's
yes,
true.
You are.
But I'm gorgeous. But it's the thing. It's like I have to be funny. I have to be talented in order to get anywhere. I don't know. Thin white people just get to exist and like wear pants. I don't know. Like I have to, like wearing, I don't know. That's a lot of work. And especially in drag, like in drag, in drag, there's like a lot of people, a lot of queens and performers who just think that it's just dressing up, which I don't think it is. Like my personal definition of drag, Sue already knows because she had to watch me explain it earlier today in a video. I think it's just having fun and like drag is inherently political, like the mere existence of it, because it stems from that like anti-establishment shit, you know, like and you know, it comes from the scene with Black trans women and brown trans men and like all these like BIPOC trans people. Like it's that's what it comes from. And it was against the grain, like the culture of it in like, I'm saying the 60s, and granted it's been going on for, you know, decades before that, but like the 60s were like that time, you know, where like, oh, you know, 1969 Stonewall, you know. I'm talking really fast. I am so sorry. I'm hyped. Wow, this ring light is like giving me so much energy. It's like one of those sunlights, you know, where you feel happy afterwards. But there's a lot of queens, they just put on clothes and they're like, this is drag. And I'm like, you're wearing a pair of tights that you stole from a Ross and a jacket that you cut up that you also stole from a Ross. And you're like, this is it. There's no substance. There's no, you know? And when I realized I'm not beautiful, I'm gorgeous, but I realized I wanted to make a statement. And so as I was saying earlier, my art, I want to make it be something because it's going against the norm of what people think. Like people, like I said, people think that they're going to come see a show where I'm going to do in Marina and the Diamonds, or again, they want me to do Selena, but I'm not going to. They think I'm going to, not going to. I don't want to give that to them. They don't deserve it. I'm going to give them politics talking about what beauty standards. And so it's like, I don't know, just like being brown and non-binary and not a twink is like you gotta have there. You have to create substance because people want you know, long blonde wig, mesh top, heels you stole from a Ross. A lot of stuff's getting stole from a Ross, steal from a Walmart. And so I'm just, yeah, it's just like I have to put in like 2.5 point amount work to be at their level. Like I have to conceptualize things, and even then, these bitches still don't like me, and I know they don't. Being said, Ed, what were you gonna say?
I wanna thank you. By the way, thank you for all of that, because that's something that I want to address to Ebony. Ebony, darling, I raised 4 daughters. My daughters, I think my oldest daughter is almost 60. And I raised absolutely beautiful daughters, physically beautiful, and they're biracial. So we had a lot of shit to deal with. When they hit the streets, it was going to be some real problems if their heads weren't together. Number one, thanks to Jay, we understand that there are demands, particularly on women, to look a certain way, to talk a certain way, to be a certain way, because the people who make those rules are terrified people. They don't know who they are. Do you understand? Now, why should you contort yourself to match some kind of image of people who don't know who they are? I can see you on my little tiny screen. You are lovely. I hear you got a lot of stuff going on. You're a very powerful young lady. And let me stop there because I want to give you a metaphor. I've got horses. I live on a farm, and I've got horses. I've got a couple of really beautiful horses that weigh 1,800 pounds, who have the power to pull my barn down. But they don't know how much power they got. So I can manipulate them almost any way, and I try to do it with love. I can manipulate them any way I want to, because they don't understand how much power they have. Ebony, you've got a lot of power. Do not bend to those who don't have their shit together. You go ahead and do, and you examine who Ebony is. What do you want to do? Who do you want to be? What kind of image do you want to project? And you don't have to check into the audience just because you're on stage. Can you get it? Mm-hmm. As a friend of mine would say at this point, how do you like me now?
A little bit better.
Okay. I could go down this road a lot further, but I raised my daughters by myself for a long time, and there's a whole bunch of this shit they didn't take.
Well, I mean, I feel like I've been taking a step back lately for a lot of reasons, partially because I've moved 7 or 8 times in the past 10 months, which started when I was living downtown, and Proud Boys were rolling through with their rifles, and then I didn't feel safe anymore, and I was living by myself. So I've bounced from place to place and finally landed at a good one. But I also I kind of going back to something that Jay said earlier, it's like, when do you know it's enough? I don't feel like what I've done is enough. I think it's a decent start. And I think that there are a lot of things that can be improved on. Like, I mean, I've been tormented in my head for months about how I named my organization Stand, Speak, Listen. The 3 most ableist words in our English dictionary, with how we typically perceive it. And I've been struggling to write a think piece on what my intent was, and just considering like all the different ways that you can stand and speak and listen. But nothing feels like enough or right. And I've considered just dropping it down to an acronym, that means nothing because it can be anything. And I mean, all of that is fine. It's all fine because it's just a name. But to what Ed said, one of my large fears is that I will have a negative impact on the spaces around me. And I don't want to be someone that everyone is listening to and send them in the wrong direction because I have no idea what I'm talking about. Because my opinion changes constantly. And I've definitely noticed the way that people listen when I speak up. and it makes me nervous. Every time I publicly say a critique on the style of protest in this town, I watch it change instantly. Within minutes, they've regrouped and listened to what I said, and they're trying to apply it. And I don't know if it's just because I'm like one of the only Black people around, or because they actually think it's a good idea, or because they'll just take any idea. But I don't want to be responsible for mass amounts of people doing something ridiculous.
Well, let me ask you a question. My grandfather used to say to me, if you don't have yourself, you ain't got nothing. And I guess my question to you is, do you feel like you know where you're coming from and who you are? Because you're surrounded, as I am, all of us are, with a bunch of madness. The United States is a madhouse. And anybody might say anything to you at any particular time. That's not surprising. They don't know where they're at. Very few do. Do you know where you're at? Because you've got to be fairly, it sounds like you need to be fairly grounded. And once grounded, which means you kind of know where you're at, then you do have yourself and you do have something. And therefore you cannot be moved right or left without a good argument by somebody who does not know who they are. Do you have yourself grounded? Do you know where you're coming from? Is this a reflection of your values, your morals, your way of looking at the universe, the world, the community, Bellingham? Where are you at? Is your position thought about, considered, grounded? Therefore, all the noise is going to be noise unless somebody's got something really important to say to you. I'm not saying that I'm that person, but where are you at?
Can I take a quick poll in the room right now? By show of hands, how many of us in this room feel grounded in knowing who we are right now? How many of us have deep-rooted imposter syndrome? How do you navigate that, Ed? Like knowing who you are, but also having deep-rooted imposter syndrome? Because I'm only halfway there myself.
Okay, thank you for the question. Because again, I'm old enough to have gone through the games. Man, the United States of America drops a whole bunch of games on you. And those games are set up for you not to find out who you are. Because once you find out who you are not something that can be manipulated. Not by stupid fools, certainly. But your question really is, how do I get in touch with my authentic self? I think, and I can only tell you my story. I can't tell you yours. And my story was, I was going to be, in my head, I was going to be a winner. I was not going to be a victim. And for a young Black child, that's a hell of a goal, okay? But I became a manipulator. I manipulated things, and you can manipulate from where you are, where you find you have been placed. I am, and I don't know, did I talk about Martin Luther King being a, no,
No.
because I've had several interviews today and I don't know who I am or where I am. Martin Luther King went to India, and in India, he was confronted with and talked to the caste system. And he was informed of the fact that America it's the second oldest caste system that we know of in the history of the world. And Ebony and I are untouchables. Martin Luther King was shocked to find that the Indian people were very aware of the United States of America, that the system that we have, upper class, middle class, lower class, is really can be called a caste system. And the Indians informed Martin Luther King that he was an untouchable. The bottom, the dregs of the society. Well, from the dregs, I went, okay, how do I deal with this place that I find that I've been born in? But to be able to say that means who am I? What am I? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? No bullshit when you start asking those kind of questions. Number one, I am, and I am due respect. I am learning what I am, and my environment is teaching me. My environment taught me to be a very, very good manipulator. And a manipulator must be aware of his adversary's shortcomings. As an artist, which was my who I began when I was born. As an artist, I knew one thing. You cannot say anything, do anything, show anything, produce anything without revealing who you are. Watch commercials on TV. If you know how to look at those, you will see who's behind it and who they are and who they believe you are. For a manipulator, oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. I can come at you knowing who you are. I have got, and I guess was born with, an adversarial relationship with the United States of America. It didn't like me. I know that. I've got to deal with it that way. A lot of the people here in this country don't like me. They think they don't like me. It's not me, and it's not their hatred of me. It's their problem with their own fears. And I just happen to be handy to hang those on. Now, I've got to go, whoa, wait a minute. Everybody around me is having a real problem, not just with me, but with themselves. I better get my stuff together. Who am I? Where am I coming from? What am I afraid of? And that's a biggie. What scares me? If I can deal with that, I'm way ahead of my adversary, because it looks like the United States of America is in denial. It's delusional. It's terrified. and it will kill you. I need to position myself in relationship to those kinds of facts. Now, I've got to sit with me quietly and without bullshit and go, okay, Ed, who are you? Where are you coming from? How do they see you? How, as opposed to how you see you? And can you come from a place that is ground? Can you ground yourself? Can you accept who you might be? And that has a lot to do with your kinds of inabilities to handle this, handle that, and so forth. Boom. I don't know how to put it in other terms to help Shuling, who seems like she's got kind of got a corner on it. She's working on it. I'm concerned about Ebony. Jay, be careful. Be very, very careful. I'm just now getting a kind of knowledge because of my age, and I'm going through. I just got past puberty, as I said, last month, and I'm starting to realize a lot of shit, and it helps me. Our indigenous brother who opened this thing said he came from that spiritual place and that sacred place and is going back to that sacred place. I'm dealing with the going back part, and I'm checking out, wow, man, this has been a hell of a trip. But for the most part, it's been my trip. Can I identify, and I'm talking about you folks, very much younger, can you identify your trip? Where is your authentic self? Where is it? What is it? Can you deal with it if it's really your authentic self? Can you deal with it in spite of the fact that it scares the shit out of you? Because you ain't got no other choice. You do not have another choice. I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, I won't count myself. Frames on my screen, and I'm going, have you found out your authentic self? Have you gotten down to, because the noise around us is saying, and I taught school for like 40 years. And the one thing I was very aware of is most of my students have gotten a very kind of subliminal voice from the culture, from the country, that says, do not go inside. Do not check yourself out, really. Here's a diversion. Let's play sports. Here's a diversion. Let's go on stage. Here's a diversion. Let's play video games. Here's another one, forever. But do not go deep inside, because social, political masters, people who control things, cannot control you if you know who you are. Sorry for preaching. I've got bad tendency that way.
That's okay. A lot of that really resonated with me. I feel like when I first started my organization, part of it was that I recognized that people didn't necessarily know what they should do around me. and they were looking for some guidance. But the other part was that I recognized this other demographic next to me was full of so many people that have so much to offer, and were never being validated or respected for it. And so I wanted to create a scenario where I could do both. But I've been thinking so much that I feel like I kind of took a almost trickle down approach, because I looked at the people around me and said, I recognize that you have value, and I recognize that I'm an oddball too. I feel like I don't necessarily fit in any particular space, and so I have the luxury of being able to move through all of them. And I could see a way for validation and respect, and wanted to say, like, take my hand, let's go. Like, I don't know why sometimes I feel like I don't know why I have that opportunity, and for some reason the people around me don't. But I looked around and thought, take my hand, let's go. Let's go to the top. Let's be who we are and do what we truly want to do. Like, get up on a stage and say what you actually mean. Wear what you want to wear and be who you are, and show them your art. And I lately have been considering that's just trickled down. It just doesn't work, because it almost feels like I'm working within the system to try and overcome the system. Like, the mentality has been, let's all get to the top together, but that's not it. There shouldn't be a top. And if there is, we're still in that power structure. To be at the top, someone has to be at the bottom. And my phone's at 10%. I gotta grab my charger.
Something that just struck me, Ebony, I hope you can still hear me, is this, is the idea of the glass ceiling, and the glass ceiling that exists. And I know Jay actually has a piece around the glass ceiling, but conceptually, like, how do you break the glass ceiling? Well, you have to be close enough to the ceiling to actually shatter it. So the people who can actually shatter the glass ceiling are usually the ones that are at the top of the pile of marginalized populations, which is a challenging place to be in. And oftentimes when we are in positions where we are near that top and we are shattering glass at the same time, we have to look at and realize that we do have privilege, and that privilege is relative. So there are times where we will have more privilege over some populations, and then less privilege over other populations. And that is just the reality of the intersections that we live in. But there's also an onus and a responsibility to shatter glass where we can, to open doors when we have the opportunity.
There is no glass ceiling unless we conceptualize it. That's somebody else's construct. Cancel that. Cancel that. And this is not personal against you.
No, it's not. You just pointed out my internalized white supremacy culture, and I'm just like, oh.
Exactly. The secret of the problems with the United States of America is that they get inside you. And that's a beautiful example of a woman talking about a glass ceiling, which she's going to have to break. No, she doesn't. First of all, number one, y'all keep the glass ceiling, okay? I'm not going to play that. I'm going in a direction that I want to go. Everybody, all of you think it's up. I think it's out. It's not that way. It's that way. And I don't have to play the glass ceiling game. I don't. I can let you think that's what I'm doing, but I'm not doing that.
This is a pro tip from someone who has been manipulating the system for a long time. I'm writing it down, Ed.
Let
Oh,
me.
I want to say something. Oh,
Go, Jay, go.
oh, I just want to say, because like that also brings up like another interesting conversation of like this idea of like the construct, like the glass ceiling, like this hierarchy of like yeah, that's not real, it's like the economy, it's not there, but I still have to exist in it, like it. And that's like the thing is like, because there's a societal thing around me like happening, like this like I don't know why the only word coming to my mind is oppression, but like this, like I live within a society that still has like the glass ceiling and all those things, that it's like, how do I function? Like, and I think my brain is still wrapping its head around those concepts, because it's like, that's all I've known. Like I'm ageless, so I don't know anything else. I'm not going to disclose my age because, and so like, that's just like another thing to like, I don't know, that I'm always thinking about, of like, I'm living in this system. What do I do? Like, am I making sense with this question?
Yes.
Yeah.
You are.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
While you're talking, I'm both sympathizing and going through personal experiences very much like yours. And what keeps ringing in my ears is, just because you and I are born into a septic tank does not mean we have to drink the water.
That's an analogy that I can get behind. Yeah. I'm still learning.
That's like
To all our viewers, we're all still learning.
I am too. I'm learning.
Exactly. And I think, I don't know, just like I wanted to touch on it, but like, just in all of this, like, we're still learning. Like, if we're the keynote speakers, yeah, cool. You logged into a Zoom call. We love that. Thank you for listening. I'm still learning. Like, I'm constantly, like, I teach. I'm an educator. I constantly tell my students, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, yeah, I'm teaching you playwriting and I won an award. Doesn't mean anything. Like, and so like, I think that's just important to live in life as well. Is like, I'm still learning, and I'm still. It's this praxis. If there's a book that I just pulled out of a filing cabinet. That's my dresser. Pedagogy of the Oppressed. I really love this book. I really like this book. I don't know, but that's like really helped me like with conversations. And I don't know, it's just like, it's like I'm still learning. And I think we're all still learning. And I think that's very important to understand, that it's okay to not understand everything and to continue learning. Because like, I'm learning so much from Ed and Ebony tonight that I'm like, wow, like fireworks coming out of my brain of what goo is left in there. Like, yeah.
Let me throw, and forgive me for talking, but I'm like a little kid who just had a bunch of information pumped into his head, and you caught me at a bad time if you want me to shut up. When I was doing guerrilla theater, one of the things that made the theater group so dynamic and incredible is we used to play a game, and the game was called What Would Happen If? What would happen if, because all of us here were born into into infinity. I want to take you back underneath racism, underneath sexism, underneath all the shit. What happens if deep down in our gut, there's an awareness that we are born into a place? I mean, this is home, folks. And we cannot conceive of where we are, really. I mean, something that goes on forever. We find that out when we're maybe in our teens, maybe we start, or maybe a little earlier, like this is the universe, folks. And we are this little tiny, teeny weeny planet with even teenier people on it. And among all those people is little tiny me. Well, I suspect that aside from the fact that when we are born, we're born egocentric, we're born narcissistic. You take care of me. I am the entire universe. I am. I don't have to think about it. I don't even think at that point. I'm hungry, feed me. I shit my pants, wipe me. I'm cold, hug me. I want to go to sleep. I'm hungry, feed me. You know, I mean, that's it. At one point, we find out, whoa, my little universe is like forever. It's all out there. Now, as that infant, I was always terrified of the other, the unknown. Well, where is a more convenient place to find the unknown than the universe? Whoa. Infinite number of possibilities, infinite number of casualties, infinite number of everything. And I have got to deal with that as this little tiny thing on this little tiny planet that goes on for trillions and trillions and trillions until it you know, infinity turns into time. That's some scary shit. Now, there's a whole bunch of people who don't know it, but they can't deal with that. Okay? We as a species can't deal with that. So what do? We grab knowledge and we put it in a box. We put it in some place that has limitations. By the way, in an infinite environment, we start finding limitations for knowledge. Compartmentalization. We go, car. Oh, well, that's car, automotive. We've, you know, and the whole history and all, we put that in a box. Nature. Oh, nature's really wonderful. Mother Nature. Oh, what a nice little title. And I'll kind of box that up. It's a little harder, but I'll do that. Wife, chair, house, ground, dog, horse, sky. All of them are in our little knowledge boxes. What we have done in doing that has been absolutely against where we came from and where we are, because you can go to any part of this universe and it will say relationship, not exclusivity. This is related to that in so many ways. This is a matrix, not a bunch of boxes. And therefore, what we don't understand is the relationship between things. We know we can point to something and give our limited knowledge about that. But we don't know, and we constantly get tripped up by the relationship between the car, the signal light, and me walking across here. We don't understand who we are, where we are, because the enormity of the unknown makes us terrified. And I believe that terror is the basis upon which we build everything. That's why when I was a child and I would hear people talk, I would realize that I heard them speaking and understand it, but that's not what they were talking about. They were talking about their relationship to some really, really heavy shits that has to do with being conscious. Do we live in a conscious universe? I'll leave that for you guys to answer. But we ain't playing this right. We're not playing it right. Ebony, these people do not know who you are. They don't know where you are. They sense, I suspect, that you have a certain amount of power that you aren't fully aware of. That's why when you say something, they go, okay, maybe we ought to do it that way. Have I droned on too long and you guys are starting to fall asleep?
No. I feel like I can collectively say no. Jay has their hand raised, and I had another question that I also got sparked, but we can keep going. Go ahead, Jay.
This just came to my mind while you were speaking, but the idea of like imagination and like, so I write children's media, I study children's media, I love watching cartoons for children, love them, because and it's really interesting because as I'm writing, like, potentially, hopefully my children's pilot gets picked up, but as I'm watching these things, they still, in their high fantasy or they're like sci-fi or whatever, they still fall in the limitations, as you were saying, of like our society, you know? Like I'm always watching like a children's show and they're like, guess what? Racism exists. And I'm like, cool. Yeah, let's keep like, you create a high fantasy world and you really want racism to be here. Or like sexism or violence against women or this still like gender binary. I don't know. Like, and so like this like imagination, especially with like kids and like writing and playwriting is like you're writing something that's not real. You're writing something that's imaginative. And so like you can think of things that don't exist. And so I think it's just like, it's really important am I talking too fast?
No.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
And I believe you're right on the money too, by the way.
Yeah. It's like so important to like, especially for like children's media. It's so, you can create anything. Like I've seen so many shows that are like cops, colonialism, racism, and it's all these things. And I'm like, for what reason do we need to continue to have these things? And we can still teach like those concepts without it being a detriment to the characters and our youngins. I don't know. That's just like when you were talking, like the imagination and like thinking outside of those boxes. That's what came up.
I think you picked up something that I found while teaching, and that is children they don't make the boxes. They are not compartmentalists. They come with ideas, but it always has an open side to it, available to relationships that might change the whole concept entirely. They don't freeze things. They think in open ways and in ways that fluctuate, that flux. One of the things that, and I'll go back to you guys' question about how do you get a hold of yourself, is stop making boxes. Stop thinking in closed systems, because that's futile. That ain't gonna work. I believe, and we might not make it, I believe that global warming and climate change and all of it, which is suicidal, it's suicidal, is the product of closed circuit thinking. And it's called me, and oh, by the way, me. Greed, hoarding, power, lust for power, the accumulation of huge wealth. I want it all. I don't give a shit about you. Will produce oil companies, chemicals that will ultimately destroy us if we do not change our thinking. your children, and I've had them in my classroom that come in. I had a class here in Washington, at Western Washington University, and they had taken in all the rules and all the guardrails of being aspiring artists. And they were upper division students, so they really knew who they were and what was cool and what was not cool. And I don't have to tell you, they only did things that were cool, and they stayed away from things that were not cool. It got so bad that I couldn't get them to do any work. They wanted to only keep it in a conceptual realm because they were vulnerable to criticism if they ever put a paint on a canvas. They wanted to conceptualize their work, not really do it. And it turned into a gigantic constipation. So I told them, I said, okay, guys, this is not working out. I'm going to have to bring in some consultants and some masters who really understand what this whole game is all about. And I want you guys to listen closely and take orders and do what they tell you to do. I went out to a friend of mine who I knew could help me, and I got about 14 or 15 5-year-olds. And I brought them into my class, and I had set the room up with these big buckets of paint and big, huge brushes. And I told these 5-year-olds, look, I've got a bunch of kids in here who don't know what they're doing. They're lost. They're in deep trouble. I need you to pick one of them and you take them to the easel and you show them how to paint. They really don't know what to do. And the kids went, oh boy. Well, needless to say, my classroom turned into this absolute mess. I got in trouble with the university because the place was so trashed. But these kids had no problem with doing whatever they felt they needed to do without all the orientation, without all the guidance, without all the rules. They just went to their native place, their legitimate, authentic self. And I got my students who are like, 19, 20 years old are looking at me going, why are they doing this to me? And I just had to tell them, that's you just forgot. You forgot who you used to be. You forgot who you used to be able to tap into. You didn't have to think about audiences and do they love me or not. Thank you, Jay, for that memory.
That's the best idea I've ever heard.
I want to poke something really quick. I was just looking at I'm going to say something, and that is all of you have a tie to the 4th of July. I don't know if you know that. So when I first met Ebony, it was for Rhythmic Unrest, which took place on the 4th of July this year, which is also the space that Jay met Ebony, which was the 4th of July this year. Ed, what were you doing on the 4th of July this year?
Celebrating my birthday.
So that was that's a fun little nugget that existed.
You just set me up.
I totally did. I was thinking about joy a little bit and kind of getting ready to do this. And that was one thing that really brought me a lot of joy, was thinking about all of you this 4th of July being this like constellation of stars that eventually came together tonight. And I was thinking about art, and I was thinking about what the revolutionary spirit means, and kind of the theme of this entire conference, and how in revolution, sometimes it's hard to maintain our cups and our cups being full. And I wanted to talk a little bit about art as a way that we find joy in this work of social justice and in these conversations. And Ebony, I want to talk to you about joy and the joy that you get when you create art, and if you find that true even in moments of protest.
I definitely do. Yeah. I think that my biggest or my most preferred medium is music, and I like to sing. And when I'm singing, honestly, nothing else exists to me. Unless you can reach that place where everyone exists together and it's like the air kind of tingles and there's some sort of meerkat connection that I can't quite explain. But I think that's definitely my happiest place, and it's something that I've maintained just for myself. You know, there's not a single day in my life, there's probably not a single hour in my life other than this one that I've gone without singing to myself at some point. And I think that when it comes to things that I create when I'm painting or drawing, I'm not really sure what I mean until I do it. Or I think that I meant something, and then when it's done, I can see exactly where I'm at, exactly what my headspace is in, and just all of the things that I'm contemplating. I can see it. And it kind of takes me completing it. I feel like I can never go into creation with clear intention, because my intention is never come across the way I want them to. But at the same time, every single time I create, it's better. It gets better. I mean, I definitely consider myself a painter, and I paint maybe once a year, once every 2 years. I'll do a self-portrait. And sometimes I don't even know that I'm about to paint a self-portrait until I do it. But every single time I see where it came from the last one, and where it branched away and improved and changed. I definitely have maintained singing to myself, but I think that putting my thoughts on paper has been really especially difficult lately. I think I know what I mean until I want to say it. What about you two?
I think for joy in regarding art and like creation, I think for a while I was convinced that it was I thought I would find joy in like busting out a piece of like a script. Later realized that was just a mental illness thing, that I shouldn't be busting out a 145-page script in 3 days without eating or sleeping. But I found joy in that at the time, until I realized like that was not the kind of joy I wanted. But now I'm understanding that I'm like, it's this slow, like joy is not a one-time thing. For me, it's like a process. It's a slow, ever cooking thing. It's like a nice mac and cheese in a crock pot, you know? Like, and every once in a while you give it a stir and add more cheese. If you want my recipe, please contact me afterwards. And so It's so good. It has like 7 cheeses in it. It cooks for like 4.5 hours. Oh, wow. But so joy is like it's finding joy in the process and like not overworking yourself. I think for one thing, for any of the artists, people in this webinar watching, please do not overwork yourself. I did that when I was in college. I consumed my life with theater and drag and writing to the point where I felt like I wasn't good enough and I was burnt out and I existed in a world of unjoy. That's not like it's not even like sadness or anger. It just wasn't joy. It was like the lack of joy. And it wasn't until recently after, COVID and this break that I've like been able to find that joy again, because I left my mac and cheese burning. I didn't let it sit, or I put too much cheese in there and too much noodle. Like I wasn't cooking my mac and cheese of joy well enough. I was rushing it. I was overburning it. It just wasn't working out. And so like finding joy for me in my theater, I'm still learning. I'm still learning how to like, because like I'm happy, like I'm joyful, but I'm just learning to live in what I'm doing now. I mean, like each look now that I've had the time to just do drag, it's been great to like experiment. Sue's been seen a lot of my drag in the last like 3 weeks in a 20-minute video that I sent her earlier today. And I hadn't done drag in so long that I then refound that joy, and it was so nice. So yeah, like I love doing things. I think it's the process and not so much the product. I kind of got around to a bunch of different points, and I maybe talked about myself like confused myself, but I don't know. Enjoy the process. I think the product, if you can live up, it's like a birthday party that you throw. You have these high expectations, but then it's always going to be awful. I don't know. I've never had a good birthday party, but I think that's just because I'm sad. But I've had fun at other people's birthday parties. Am I wrong? Yo, can I get a shout out in the chat?
No, you're not.
Who's had a good birthday party?
I feel like that kind of, I just wrote down kind of a conclusion to what I was thinking, bouncing off of what you were saying. And it's just that I know what I mean, except for wow, I mean it. And I think that's kind of like exactly on it, like I know I want a birthday party and I plan it, and I know that I want to celebrate and I want to have fun, and then I'm at the birthday party and stuff is weird, and I know that I want to celebrate still, but it's weird. And then after the birthday party, I know how I felt about it, but while it's happening, I'm not really sure. And I had sent a question to Sue, and I don't know if she's gonna ask it, but I'm gonna ask it right now. I wanted to know if you think art comes before or after a difference, right? Like, is art a prediction or kind of a manifestation of the things that we want, or is it just a reflection on what's already happened? Because I think that part of what I've considered is that art is kind of a chariot for change, but I'm not sure if that's true.
Get it, Ed.
I'm gonna get water and I'm just gonna grab water, but I'm taking my laptop with me. No one question what's happening.
This is the most Zoom moment of our entire evening. The trip to the kitchen with Jay. Jay, what are your Ed? What are your thoughts on whether art is a catalyst for change or a reflection of the shifts in our reality?
I've given this a certain amount of thought. I think, and again, I'm don't pretend to talk for everybody. I know that there are people who have the same experience I've had. I think for whatever reason, you start to study the technical aspects of dance or theater or acting or writing, novels, poems, whatever. You learn the language of the particular art form that you're looking at and that you are drawn to, maybe are either most comfortable or least comfortable with. But for some reason or another, you're drawn to that. You have to learn, I think, and how you learn it is up to talk about, but you learn the language so that you can speak using that language. Ebony, you sing, there's a whole lot of language skills to learn about that, doing that. And then I think if you look at the arts and particularly creativity, I was talking about the fact that everything is related, and creativity is like a probe out into the universe to that says, I have a problem, or there's something I want to say or do. How do I answer that problem? With me, it's like, okay, I want to talk about a political issue, but I wanted to do it using a kind of creativity here or there. How do I do that? Basically, I'm opening up to the possibilities. I see creativity and the arts as a probe that goes out, gets information, brings it back, exhibits it either through song, through your voice, through your novel, through your poem, through your dance, choreography, whatever. But the information doesn't come from you, it comes through you. Artists are like a pipe or a hose connected to the other end of which I can only trip out about. But there are times when I need information to come through that hose, through that vessel, and I'm able to put it together in some form and hand it to other people. I think that is a unique position that artists have, and that you are uniquely able to bring all kinds of things that don't presently exist in your culture, in your society. You're able to bring those fascinating, incredible, beautiful, necessary, healing even from some other place to here. That's our job. Or no, that's my job.
Just so we know, for the folks who are on the call with us, please feel free to type questions into the Q&A section, and we'll try and get to a few tonight before we wrap up. But I did want to make space for Jay to also contribute to this conversation. I think it's a really beautiful question, Ebony, that you threw into the cosmos, and I actually wrote it down to ask everyone too. I was right there with you.
If anyone was wondering, I grabbed salmon that my roommate made, and we don't have any forks, so I am eating it with a spoon. I will be taking no questions about that. But for the question asked by Ebony, it's not mac and cheese. That takes too long to make. But so, for me, yes, it's something that's already happened that I'm bringing forward, like Ed said. So my award-winning play, How to Clean Your Room and Remember All Your Trauma, is a memory play. That play does not exist unless I lived through those moments. A, because it's a autobiography. It's like I couldn't bring these moments to people if they hadn't already happened. And so that's like, for me, and when I wrote Foolish, like it was parties that I had already physically been to that I like brought forth and let these moments live. So for my art, excuse me. It's like that hose, it's that chute, it's the, I'm readying the cannon and I'm firing the story forward, rather than I'm sitting there and then the story hits me. I don't remember what I'm saying, but yeah, for me, it's things that have already happened that I'm allowing create the story. I'm not just gonna create a fake thing that I don't know, without even using my imagination. I'm just using preconceived ideas that I have in my mind that I'm also breaking. Am I making sense with any of this?
You are. You're making a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's really good salmon.
Ebony, I'll throw this out there. I know that I'm not one of the panelists here tonight, but I think about there's this, that, I don't know, that both things are true, that there's a duality. It's an and. Yes, and. Hi, Barbara. That there's an and to this. Art is something that manifests and reflects the realities of the things that we're around, and it can be a catalyst for change because of that opportunity to reflect on what's around us. So by holding up a mirror and looking into it, we have the opportunity to create change. But I think that both are true. I think that, we work within the language and the mediums that we're presented with, which is that hose, that conduit that Jay and Ed are talking about. But maybe there's also room to also discuss the opportunities that a mirror has for being a catalyst of change.
Mirror?
A mirror. Ed, I'm gonna call you out on this one. When you put your sculpture of Miss America in the museum, looking at that piece and looking at the idea of someone's head being upside down and nailed on backwards because of the amount of propaganda that exists in the United States and how we're taught to think. And you've called me out on how being taught to think a specific way tonight multiple times, and I appreciate it deeply because it's gonna make me a better learner. But that is a reflection for us, and it causes us to think about propaganda in a different way and the icons that we see in our world, and the way that you use pop art as a medium for communicating and creating that mirror for us as we look at your pieces. I think that that your art in particular is actually a really great manifestation of how that truth can exist as a duality.
Well, I think we all have been invaded. We're almost like when they put the yellow tape up and says that this is a criminal investigation. I think, unfortunately, we are born into this environment without any defense mechanisms. And so our adversaries, those forces that don't have our best interests at heart, can conceptually invade us. So we end up with attitudes and ways of looking out at the world that in many ways don't belong to us. We've accepted them because, quote unquote, they're logical. And this is what people do. And society expects this and that of you. But it's really an invasion. And it goes back to the earlier questions. Well, can I separate all that stuff that I've been indoctrinated with? Can I get that either out of me or put someplace so that I can see what's left? What's left is me. But the reason I did that piece was very much the core of this conversation, which is if you let your environment talk too intimately to you, you end up with your head on upside down and backwards. You think everything's cool, but most people that you're going to talk to have got their heads upside and backwards too. So how do you, and again, I'm still dealing with, I think it was Ebony's question, or maybe it was Jay's, how do you find that authentic self? And well, maybe part of it is to go back to what has happened to you. And what has happened to you is, I was, always a rebellious kid. And I heard that they were always telling me that that's not the way a nice boy acts. Well, I had to go deal with who's the nice boy? What's that about? Do I want to be that or not? And it goes on. America, land of the free, home of the brave. Whoa, my objective information tells me that ain't true. I better check that out. America, the most beautiful democracy in it. Whoa. Hold on. Democracy? I don't believe there's democracy in this country. Let me check it out. Because if I ingest that, I could find myself in kind of deep, at least psychological problems, in deep kind of not okay, upside down and backwards.
So I want to make a pivot to a question that got posed in our chat. One of them was thinking about, it's a question, what advice and wisdom do you have for parents or caregivers of children who still don't have constructs defining their worlds or boundaries that define their potential, but inadvertently will begin to internalize these constructs and start limiting their authentic creative selves? So what advice might we have as a room? And I mean, Ed, you've raised 4 daughters now. What are our thoughts?
This is both my daughters and being in a classroom, especially very young kids. You kind of need to leave them alone. They know more about where they want to go and who they want to be than you do. You certainly have to put up certain guardrails to keep them safe. And sometimes it gets very scary because you've got to let them examine the world the way they need to do it and still keep them safe. I've got a daughter who loves to push boundaries. And as a 5 or 6 year old, she wanted to climb up on something that was very unstable and she had to go to the top. I could not, as a parent, loving her and wanting her to fully realize who she was, not let her go ahead and give it a shot. Luckily, she made it and got down. But it really, really challenged me to let her be and start to find out who she wanted to be and how she wanted to examine the world. In the art biz, particularly, letting kids, and terrible thing to give them the color book and say, what, all of you have heard it, you gotta color inside the lines or else you're not nice, or and that's how we do our relationship with kids. And I'm going, no, you got to be careful. You got to keep those lines, let them draw the lines. If they want to keep it inside the space, let them do it. Don't you do it.
I kind of have an answer to that question too. I'm not a parent myself. I like to think I'm a motherly figure. That's just how it goes in the queer community. Someone's a mom, someone's a kid. You just keep doing that over and over again. But for me, for like this idea of like teaching kids, also as an educator, Ed's had more time in the business of educating than I have. But for me, what I've learned is allowing young kids and students to be like, allow room for questioning and letting them know that it's okay to ask questions. And that if you don't know the answer, you can allow them to be like, you can let them know, like, I don't know the answer. Let's learn together. Like, let's look into it. And that kind of like allows kids to begin to like oh, I'm allowed to question things and like create conversations rather than just like a kid walks up and they're like, why is the sky blue? I don't know why that's the reason, the question, but why is the sky blue? And you just tell them, well, it's because it is. You're just telling them like a point blank, you're not allowing that room to grow. Or like, why does X thing happen? Letting them like be vulnerable in not knowing, especially us as adults. And I also said, don't enforce the idea of a power structure with your kids. Like being like, I'm adult, you are child, we'll never be equal. Because I don't know, like, I'm not saying your child's gonna resent you because of that, but it just like creates this idea that you need to be, you're raising humans, you're raising just a good human, and allowing them to, like, you work with them rather than you. Am I making sense with any of this? I'm just like, yeah, I constantly question if I'm making sense, but that's just how my brain works. And then I also wrote this thing down. Your child did not ask to be born, if you to be brought into this world. So it is your job to love them and show them kindness and allow them to question things. Because if you just enforce your ideas onto them, especially before they know these concepts and these boxes, before they know that concept, then you're the one teaching them these boxes. I'm done there.
I want to take us to another question really quick, and Ebony, I want to pose this one to you in particular. Do you think the absence of art in a community setting has contributed to civil unrest in our country during the last year?
Yeah, 100%. I think that a large part of the reason anybody's doing anything is because they had all this time to sit and do nothing. And if you do nothing for long enough, you're going to start to think. And if you think for long enough, you're going to get uncomfortable. And you can either change your position or change your perspective. So yeah, definitely. Absolutely 100%. I think that, art isn't pretty much everything we do. And we've had an absence of pretty much everything we do. So it's probably a big part of it.
Can I ask this group a question about the next actionable step? What can we do as a collective and as a community, as individuals, to bring some of this kind of idea of a reservoir of hope or social change into the world? Like, if we had a call to action for the people in this community with us tonight, what would we hope to see tomorrow? Oh man, that was a heavier question than I thought. There's some big inhales, y'all.
I think the problem with people right now is to really get to the core of what's underneath some of the obvious problems is we've got to put together some kind of program, some kind of attractive, something that will attract people to start to question how they think. I think I don't know how to do that at this point, but I think underneath our problems, I don't think we need to point anymore, or no, we continue to point to racism and so forth. But I think realizing that is a veneer over something that something wrong that's deeper than that. And racism and the rest of the isms are a manifestation of some deeper problems. Now, how do you get people to start to look at that? Because What we're talking about is challenge people, inviting people to challenge themselves to go into areas that they maybe do not want to go into. You know, you're going to have to distinguish yourself in a way, or describe yourself or define yourself outside of the problem that you're starting to try to fight. It's very difficult to be a racist and fight racism without looking at, well, what is racism all about? And what's my part in that? I mean, why am I a racist? Do I really hate those people? Well, why do I hate them? Well, my father told me to hate them. Well, first of all, is that a reason for you? And why did your father do that? I think being able to examine somehow us being able to put together some kind of structure that would invite people to check themselves out. And again, I've used this term before, and find out who their authentic self is. I don't think people, if they dig deep enough, are going to find that they're really racist. I know that as a man, and male chauvinism and the whole oppression of women, I found that I really kind of like women. Aside from sexuality, I think they know more than men. I think they're really kind of cool. When I'm at a party, I really like hanging out with the women and listen to what they talk about. Because the guys, man, is that woo? That's kind of stupid. But I think my point is that I forgot my point. I'll defer to someone else.
Ebony, what do you think we should be like? Tomorrow morning, the community wakes up optimistic and ready to do something. What do you think is their next step?
Well, I'm not exactly sure what the next physical step is, but I think that one of the first conceptual steps is recognizing that, like Ed was saying, all of these isms are the same issue. And they look different because they're each being put in their own box, but they're also all inside of a bigger box. And I think that, I think that a large part of it is, I forgot. I forgot too. Yeah. Your turn to forget what you're saying, Jay.
The virus. It's a virus, Ebony, and you just caught it from me.
Well, now it's my turn. I did take a big inhale when Sue asked this question, because my initial thought was I don't know, because it's so out there, as Ed was saying, it's imagining infinity and like being born into infinity and that like idea. And so it's like, how do you conceptualize what's next? And kind of going off what Ed said, or what Ed mentioned. So I talked a lot about this on my podcast. No, I will not tell you any of you what it is, but there's racists, not racists, anti-racists, and then there's a fourth one, a traitor against the system. So I want you all to understand that you can be anti-racist, but still exist and perpetuate ideas within the system that is still hurting Black and brown people. So you need to literally be a traitor to that system. And so I think that's all I can tell you, because I really don't know. And that's the only like little tidbit I have of just thinking about where are you in this, and it's not a power structure. It's just like where do you exist in the world? Where do you fall in? What are your intersectionalities? What is your existence? Is it for you? Is it for other people? Do you wake up every day and wonder why capitalism exists? Like, why? Why do you? I don't know. I lost my point.
3 for 3.
What would happen if we were not at, and I'll go with a species level, what would happen if the species wasn't afraid? Yes, I am alone in this vastness, but it's not terrifying. It doesn't have to be. It's possibilities. What would happen if I didn't have to have the whole racist thing because I'm okay with me? What would happen if I didn't have to accumulate trillions of dollars, billions of dollars, because I don't need that. I'm okay. Now, if it's okay, we're not going with our fear impulse. Okay, now what? What do we want to do? What do we want to be? If we're in an infinite place, we have infinite possibilities. Let's go do something fucking outrageously cool. You know, I mean, I'm not even, I don't have to waste a portion of my brain hung up on you and what you're doing and what you look like and what you believe. That's all cool. No problem. Now, what do we want to be? What do I want to wake up in the morning and experience? I mean, if we look at the past, we've done phenomenal things after crawling out of the mud as a amphibian, you know? Okay, let's really push it. Let's really do some really fucking far out shit. Well, what do we want that to be? What does it look like? What do we have to do to bring our dreams, our aspirations, dreams we haven't even had yet? What do we have to do to make that, bring that into being? We can. One of the givens here is we can be anybody we want to be. We can do anything we want to do in an infinite number of possibilities. Let's go do that. Okay, Jay, what do you want to do, man?
I want to wake up and not hate myself.
That's an easy one.
That
one's easy.
Oh, I want to.
And by the way, one of the things I wanted to say to you is you have a platform for saying some really important shit to a bunch of people that really need to hear that. I mean, really, some human, beautiful human shit that you can share with them, that you know it, and you know they know it. Can you say it out loud, and can you point to the next place? You understand what I'm saying?
I do. Thank you so much. Well,
it kind of brought a tear to my eye too. You know? But no, I know you've got an incredible platform and an incredible kind of sense of humor and personal kind of vibe. Do it, man. Do it to death. I mean, and what would you allow to come through you? Because you've got the podium, you're on the stage, and there's information that can come through you. How do you allow that to happen? I won't take it any further. We can talk about
Ed,
Cracker Jacks and jump rope right now, and we don't have to pursue this.
Ed, I would die for you. I would die for you too, Ebony. Just letting you both know this, and I adore you both so much.
I want to say just thank you to the three of you a whole lot. I want to be respectful of time. In 12 hours from now, we're going to be opening up the conference's open house online for an entire day of service. And tonight, I'm just really deeply appreciative of the conversation that we've been able to have.
We didn't get any questions.
Huh?
Were we just talking to each other? We didn't get an audience?
Oh, you totes, like I have like all these notes. We got through them. Y'all are really efficient.
No, an audience with questions.
Yep, we got through them all.
I mean, didn't you have someone else watching this?
Yeah, I'm watching them right now. Y'all nailed it.
Weren't you going to have an audience ask us questions? No?
I think Sue froze. So anyway, my favorite color is lavender. If that was a question.
Mhm.
The last thing the only question we didn't answer in the entire thing was if there was any way for folks to keep in touch with you three. Ooh, I know.
I would say look up.
And then I'll see you. Like, there's Ed.
Kind of an
Well,
ether.
who are you talking to? I'm like, it's Ed. Like, come on. Like,
It's raining. It must be Ed. Yeah. No, I would say if people need to get in touch with me, Sue Ling, they need to talk to you, and you can kind of bounce them over to me.
Bounce them over to you or be your bouncer? Like, what do you prefer, Ed?
I think you'd make a great bouncer.
Oh, thanks, Ed. Ebony, what's the best way for folks to keep in touch with your art and your work?
I heard you recently got a gig in bouncing. And I don't know if you're taking on new clients. But
crying.
Not the only one. Jay's crying too. Ebony, Ed, Jay, I will gladly be your bouncer.
I can be my own bouncer. I'll have you know that.
Stand, Speak, Listen has an incredible Facebook page. There's an awesome video about rhythmic unrest on that Facebook page. And I think are you still on Insta? We're still on Insta, right?
And Instagram exists.
So check that out on Facebook. It's incredible. And that probably would be the best way to get in touch with Ebony about that activism work. But you're also welcome to contact me, and I'm offering bouncing services for Ebony as well. Hey, what's the best way to keep in touch with you?
So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at El Presidente Rey. That's El President EREY. You can find me, that's Twitter and Insta. And then you can follow my drag Twitter and Instagram. Oh my God, what the fuck is it? I think it's tsunami.hazard. That's SUENAMI _hazard. And then you can follow my podcast Twitter. That's WWDF Podcast. Please, we need listeners that are not from Everett, Washington. where we talk about movies and racism. It's a lot of fun. That's where you can find me. Or if you want to, you can go through Sue. If you want, maybe you have 3 clients now, maybe.
Oh my God. New COVID gig.
Yeah. It's remote. I'll tell you that. It's a remote job, which won't even hire me. If anyone's looking to hire someone, I have a resume. I don't know what's on the resume, but there is one.
A resume exists.
My beautiful friends, thank you so much for your time this evening and for being in conversation with me. Thank you to Megan and Felina so much for interpreting this evening and making our event more accessible. We deeply appreciate you.
Thank you, Shiling, for all the work behind the scenes and pulling all this together, and the infinite number of emails that you must have had to do. Thank you.
All right, and to our friends still on the call, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And we hope to see you tomorrow through our amazing day of service that this group of organizers has planned through the Whatcom Human Rights Task Force. If you are interested in getting registered, go to WHRTF.org. There's still room to sign up for the various events. Yes, I had to think about the acronym in my head, Jay and Ebony, I see you. And if you're interested in continuing to support this effort, feel free. Like, Whatcom Human Rights Task Force is a 501c3 nonprofit. Feel free to, if you can, give to their organization so we can keep providing learning opportunities here in our community. I mean, other things worth checking out. We have a lot of mutual aid organizations as well as other incredible organizations doing a lot of work right now and providing a lot of opportunities for us as a community to take on a learner's posture and expand our thinking. So take that into consideration. And honestly, thank you all so much for being here tonight with us, getting to witness. I feel like I just survived a tsunami, one would say.
That's me.
And I'm glad that we got to share it all with you. So have a